Hey guys, how's it going? I'm going to walk you through this gouache painting. Gouache painting is a 6x9 and it's a painting of sunset cliffs here in San Diego. So this video will be talking about thought process and how you start and work your way through the painting and then how you finish. And so in the beginning here, you'll see me start with a pencil sketch, but it'll be really brief, and my focus will be on shapes and blocking in those shapes that will help me construct the painting. So in the pencil sketch, we're not going to be drawing a lot of detail, but we are going to be looking for big shapes to construct the form, and then we'll be looking at other shapes that are shapes of color. And then we'll block all that out, and then towards the end of the painting, then we'll start to render or design smaller shapes and work towards details. Here we go. In the beginning here, we're looking at big shapes. We're drawing out the landmass first, which is the near cliff and then the darker brown rocks that are in the middle of the painting. And we're just blocking out enough for us to recognize all the big color areas. And then after the landmass right here, you'll see me blocking out the white foam in the water, and then a brief sketch of the wave, and then the horizon line in the sky. So now what I'm going to do is I want to put in the general color in those shapes. So I'm not really planning on doing too much detail at this point. What I'm doing is labeling the general color, the color that's the most in that area, I guess you would say. And then I'll be blocking out flat tones of color in these shapes, and that'll be my base for the painting. And then later on, I'll blend these shapes together and then paint over them and paint through them and blend them together. So placing these colors like this, we're basically creating a visual bookmark in the painting, and we're constructing these forms, but we're not spending a lot of time doing details yet because we want the big concept of the image to come through first and then details second. So when you work like this, the one thing you do get to do is you get to mix a lot of the general colors first and then put them in the shapes, and it really helps out with the big picture. By the time you get done filling in all your shapes, you've pretty much got about 60% of the painting done. And then you're going to spend that rest of that time building towards that detail or that finish. And you can see here that I'm actually blocking in some shapes, some smaller shapes. And once I get the whole landmass in there, then I'll redirect my efforts towards the water again and try to build into the white foam and get those details going, the reflections on the rock. Like the rock is a brown, but it has water on it, so it has kind of a blue-gray tint to it. So I put some big flat kind of blue-gray shapes in there. And then earlier where the white water is where it's going to be is right now kind of a gray-blue, just to kind of give me a bookmark of where it's going to be when I go back to detail over it. So at this point in the painting, we've constructed the foundation for the painting. We can see the foreground, the middle ground, the background. We have a general color scheme, and then at this point, you can start seeing, I'll start building in details on the forms that I have laid out. And it's really important that we construct and build that foundation first. And then after that, it's going to visually, it starts looking like it already. And then you can start adding details. So now you're starting to see me. I'm going to start putting the white water in the ocean, marking little waves like there's the white water, and there's a light blue ripple in the water, and then there's the darker green blue water, and then back part of the waves. I'll be working on like the reflections, just some slight white being mixed in with the blues, and I'll put a little shadow there, put a little dark line across the horizon line, and then you'll see me add in a bunch of random white pieces in here, just to kind of work with the lighting of the water and really pushing the background back, trying to get the foreground, the rocks to come forward, and getting that light to scatter over the water in the ocean and across the sky. It was kind of an overcast day there, so there's not a lot of vibrant colors. A lot of muted colors will be in the color palette, and you can see like I come into the foreground here. Also using a toothbrush to scatter paint to kind of give some random stuff. And I'm doing some darks on the ground, but then I'll do some whites in the water, and I'll scatter some white there with the toothbrush, kind of go over and then dab some up with the rag, because a lot of times you use a scatter, like hits parts of the painting that maybe you don't want there. So as long as it's wet, you can pick it up really quick. It's not a problem. And if you don't, it's gouache, so you can just blend it back into the paint, into the foundation. So, and then you can just try again. So it's not really not much of a risk. At this part in the painting, we are looking at, like I'm just looking at here at the highlights and trying to put in the darkest points in the painting to kind of build that contrast, and looking for those elements that will make it read, and constantly going back and forth and editing things. And you'll see me go over the ground a couple times. There's some like gray-green bushes that I was throwing in there. Some small vegetation was really dried out, and I go back and forth over the ground on the cliff several times, and then go back into the ocean. So I'm kind of going back and forth over the whole painting. And basically at this point, what I'm really looking for is stuff that bothers me. Like if something bothers me, then I try to fix it, and I go back and forth on all the different things. So I'm going to go back over everything again, and then once I get some part that I really like, I'll go to the other section of the painting and I'll art direct that. And then once I get that done, I'll go over to another section of the painting and I'll art direct that. So the one thing I would say is don't try to rush the painting. Don't try to finish it. I mean, obviously, if you're a working painter, then you have deadlines and all that kind of stuff. But if it's just for pleasure, or if it's just for practice, take your time. You may want to just put your brush down, walk away, come back the next day and check things out again. And but this is looking pretty good here. So what I would say at the end is think in the broad concept of the painting first, and then work, for that foundation, construct and build that foundation, then go in and then detail your painting. Remember, your thought process is really important, and it will build your consistency in paintings. So if you have a good thought process to process information, then you'll have consistent good paintings afterwards. So, and this of course comes from experience and more paintings. So the more you paint, the better you're going to get. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you soon.